What's up, Taj? Let me know if you guys can hear me, how the audio is. You see the chart okay? How's everything doing? Give it a couple minutes for everyone to get in here. Couple minutes till 9:30 open. Thought we'd hop on for a little Friday stream. We had a good PM session stream yesterday in Discord. I did upload that in the live stream playlist on my channel. It was a good one, full of gems. We had some good price action, thank God. So if you didn't watch that and you want to review it, of course, be sure to go check that out. Thank you, guys. Give me 1 second here. Appreciate your patience. And of course, if my audio ever cuts out or you can't hear me well, or the screen starts going crazy, just let me know. Okay, let's do it. So we'll start as we typically do on NASDAQ. We're just going to go top down. Okay. If you're wondering right now why I'm getting on and 9:30 opened in a couple minutes, it's to stress patience to a lot of traders. Okay. Most people have an impatience issue, problem over trading, a problem entering impulsively, all those bad habits that we want to keep out of our trading to have a successful trading career. And one of those tools that we can utilize to avoid those things and implement and stress patience is the opening range filter. Okay, I talk about this within the group. I believe I've talked about it within some of the past few videos, but plain and simple, if you have an issue over trading, you want to apply the opening range filter. So on days where we have 10 a.m. red folder news, the opening range filter is of course just 9:30 to 10 a.m. So what does that mean? If you're looking for the best of the best setups, you want to say my rule is no trades until after 10 a.m. Okay, and why is that important? Because first and foremost, you're stressing patience until you overcome that issue in your trading. Secondly, we know that the major advantage with ICT concepts and you as an ICT trader, is what? Time. So we want time and price, not just price signatures, not neglecting the importance of signatures and price to draw on liquidity, everything that goes into building a narrative, looking at price and the market alone. But if we can combine those signatures and price with time windows, that's when you get high quality setups, high quality ideas of what price is likely to do. Okay. On top of this, from the opening range, again, if we have 10 a.m. red folder news and you're saying, okay, I'm not trading till after 10 a.m., you're getting all the information from that first 30 minutes after New York 9:30 open. You're getting the opening range high, the opening range low. You're seeing where we are in relation to 9:30 open. Or in other words, is there clear manipulation, a Judas swing, right? You're getting your 9:30 fair value gap. You're looking for any substantial SMTs during the opening range, and you're getting all of that data and remaining patient, and then you look to work from 10 a.m. and beyond. Okay, if we have a day where there's no red folder news, my opening range filter is 9:30 to 9:50. So I'm letting that first 20 minutes of trading play out. So I still get that same information, but then since there's no 10 a.m. red folder news, I can start to look for trades at the start of the 9:50 macro. So again, we're stressing what? Patience and understanding the significance of time. Okay, so that being said, just kind of wanted to lay that down. If you're wondering, okay, well, why is he getting on here right at 9:30? Why isn't there some preparation before that? I'm stressing what I just mentioned, what I just discussed with the opening range filter. Okay, and B, I want to show you guys my process while we're letting price play out on the lower time frame. Okay, so on the weekly chart, we've been watching this. We have this SMT at the highs. Of course, price has been so strong in the past couple months. And now, just looking at the weekly chart, we're sandwiched between this SIBI from July 15th and this BISI from September 16th. Okay, so we're going to go through the lower time frames, of course. We bounced off this weekly volume imbalance. Curious to see, unless we rip up today, and still, this is still my process, right? So I still need to go down. I haven't looked at in depth the top-down analysis in the lower time frame. So we'll see what we can get and build our narrative. And that's really all we're doing. We're just trying to identify order flow, whether we're in a buy program, sell program, try to identify if these are conditions that we want to be a part of. And if they're not, we just continue to try to get in sync with order flow until we see signatures that are telling us that price is favorable and it wants to do, clearly go to a buy side liquidity pool or a premium inefficiency, whatever we find in our narrative, in our due diligence. Okay, but curious to see where we close today. Of course, the weekly candle will close in relation to this weekly SIBI. Okay, the daily chart as we move down, this, which was this past Monday, is extremely significant to me. As you can see, this is what we were watching. If I really quickly put the quadrants on this order block, yesterday we came a little above mean threshold, which is 50%, and ran into that upper quadrant here. On the right side, you can see that is 20,587. We had a little coloring outside the lines, less than 10 points, and now we've rejected. But we're really focused on what? The bodies. Okay, so again, right, it's kind of, in my opinion, the way I'm looking at the market now on a more higher time frame, intermediate to long-term basis is in this dealing range on the daily chart, take it step by step. Okay, because the market had been so strong, if we are going to see an area where we're trying to determine if this swing high specifically is a top, we need to really understand that we're still bouncing off this bullish order block that's in a discount of this range, and we need to, right? And if you're saying how do we take it step by step, you just do your top-down analysis and use the lower time frame structure, lower time frame PD arrays, look at the candles closures, right? The bodies tell a story. So now we're digging back up into this order block, okay? And really for a more refined idea of what I'm looking at today, I just want to continue down to the 4 hour. So here, this dealing range is the same, just pasted from the daily chart, okay? And if price moves from premium to discount, we have these relative equal lows, okay? The low from Wednesday that fell just short of last Wednesday, October 9th, daily low. That level is on the right side, as you can see, is 20,196 even. We fell just short of that. So traders right now are seeing 1, 2, double bottom, strong support, whatever. Okay, and at the moment it's left it, and you guys know sometimes it'll just leave relative equal lows, whether it's for a day, whether you're looking on the 1 minute chart and it's just between macros and then it'll go purge it, right? But at some point, now looking at this 4 hour chart, okay, if I draw out this BISI or this bullish fair value gap, I'll make it a bit more prominent. Okay, I'd want to see us close below this on the 4 hour chart and then use it on any retracement as resistance, quote unquote, and see if price can be pushed down to these lows. Because on the 4 hour chart looking here, this is the only inefficiency from current market price and the engineered sell side liquidity pool I've annotated here. So if we close below there, we can still look at the lower time frames, but we'd want to see but I want to see a candle close. And again, we're just going top down and building our narrative, and we're going to get down to the 1 minute chart. Okay. On the 4-hour, anything else I want to note? Not really. I mean, the bearish scenario is that if these highs are safe, buy side delivery followed by aggressive sell side delivery. So you don't want to see, if we are going to roll over and dig into a deeper discount to here and then maybe beyond down to these lows and really see this be a high being formed, you don't want to see that purged, right? So let's go down to the 1-hour time frame, see that we're seeing in relation to all-time high, where NASDAQ is failing to purge that all-time high, and ES, as we'll see, and as I'm sure most of you guys know, is taking that all-time high. We saw an SMT in relation to this week's high with Monday, okay? So let's look at this hourly chart. As you can see, you want to have your new week opening gap on your charts for today, the right side there. If you don't have your levels, 20,432.5 is your new week on 413.25. Okay, you can see we just, I believe, fell just short of it, but we're right around it. So we'll see on the lower time frames how we act. Okay, and whenever we have the new week opening gap in close proximity to price, when we're delivering within it or around it, this is kind of my gauge, my preferential direction, right? So, you know, the basic framework is what I usually tell the Discord is, okay, as long as we're above new week opening gap, we favor longs. If we are below it, we want to see if we can get a close below. Any retracement, can we use it as resistance to go lower? Of course, there's more that goes into it and in building your narrative, and it's hard for me to do a full, you know, in-depth breakdown of how we utilize the new week opening gap in different ways for trade management, for narrative, as I just discussed, so on and so forth, as a draw on liquidity, sometimes a high probability draw on liquidity. But if we see scenarios where it's applicable, which hopefully we do, and I suspect we will because we're in close proximity to it, I'll just make those notes as they present themselves. So on the hourly chart, process part of my pre-weekly preparation, you're just looking for key liquidity pools, right? So we have yesterday's high here. Really, if we're going to see, and I don't want to say this prematurely, I want to see the lower time frame structure. And I really, you know, you do want to look at the higher time frames, of course, and build your narrative top down. But the lower time frame structure and identifying liquidity pools is very significant to me. But at the moment, so you can see this is yesterday's lunch high. So I'm looking for session highs, okay? Previous day high, this was the high of Thursday's daily candle. So yesterday, October 17th. And then within that daily candle, we have these more refined sessions, these micro sessions. Lunch high at 20,528.75. Okay. And this is Asia low. Right, and just remain patient. We are going to get down there. It's 9:37. We still have about 13 minutes until the 9:50 macro. We have no red folder news today. So that is my first area of interest. But you know, these liquidity pools, new week opening gap, okay, are all significant to me. I want all these tools, all this information to build my narrative. So when I go down to the lower time frame, I can understand things like what needs to be overcome. You know, the new week opening gap, if we're going to go below, we want to see a close below. You know, liquidity pools, session highs and lows, where we could be drawn to, or what I would want to see purged before we see potentially a reversal, right? So it can be tedious, but it's extremely significant. So minute opening price, we're above that now. Make this a bit larger for you guys. And this is really, you know, here, this is the range we're working within. So we're looking to get involved within this, okay? Only if the opportunity is clear. If there's no opportunity, you remain patient. And that's really when you can resist from doing as the market's fluctuating around, that's the moments when you become profitable as a trader, right? And it sounds silly, but it's real because we can all identify what a high probability setup. It's not clear to us. Okay, so let's do this. Purchase and buy side, ran higher. And now let's start to really go to work. So we purged this low. So I'm looking at this as engineered sell side liquidity. Whenever we have scenarios like this, it's suspect to me as a draw. Okay. Now I'm just continuing to go down to this 1 minute time frame and just refining the plan, refining the range, looking for liquidity pools, right? As we wait there, again, I'm not going to mark it because it's right on the new week opening gap. When I'm operating on the lower time frame, I try not to do too much in terms of marking up my chart. You just want to focus on liquidity pools, key levels, right? The only time I'll really mark it up is if and also just this is a place I'd want to see us draw to as well, because it's within that new week opening gap, right? But whenever you see them fall just short of a new week opening gap, of a 930 gap, of a higher time frame inefficiency, a new day opening gap, these liquidity pools, these swing lows in the lower time frames are suspect. And I look at this as just with the 930 to whether you're waiting for 950 or a day where it's 10 a.m. red folder news, if you're waiting for the opening range filter to conclude, to get involved, you want to see as much engineered liquidity left for you to target for that macro window, right? Sometimes, and it might do it here, sometimes it might just purge it without you. And that's just you being detached from the market and not letting it affect your next set of decisions, your next trade, your next series of trades, okay? Right now, let's do this. Let's mark this, key opening price, 930 open. So if we go back up to the higher time frame, just real quick, a bit of ways away from it, right? It is important if we are building a short narrative, we can say, yes, we're above minute opening price, and that is best case for a short. But when we're far away from it, that's when you use the 930 opening price and eventually the macro opening price to have more refined levels to see, okay, are we above or below these key opening prices, right? So now 930 open was right here. We're looking for the first fair value gap after that to classify as our 930 fair value gap, which is very significant to us. And we haven't gotten that yet. So see how it's just patient trading. We're letting this opening range play out, right? Especially, and it's just bound to happen, there's plenty of times that price will gyrate and fluctuate without of time. Sometimes I'll miss moves, and I'm perfectly fine with missing opening range moves because I know that it's more likely for clean moves to occur during these macro windows. And I want to do what? I want to be patient and take high quality setups, okay, when time and price are aligning. Okay, and that doesn't mean I never take losses. That doesn't mean you'll never take losses. It's just understanding that trading is a game of probabilities. Okay, so we're digging up higher here. Excuse me. And while we wait another 7.5 minutes or so, let's check in on S&P. The high of this daily BISI is 5850 even. If we go down to the lower time frames and just real quick, I'm going to be a little quicker with this because it's going to be similar framework structure as NASDAQ. You'd want to see it close below this to send us lower. That's how I'm looking at the 4-hour chart. But you can see these lows 5850 even. Those equal lows. That's also that daily BISI high. So that's a draw on liquidity. Okay, this was our order block yesterday that we deemed high probability. Closed below after the SMT, came up into it, rejected aggressively. Beautiful move, right? Now we're in this propulsion block here. On the hourly, we wicked above 50% of it, and also note this SIBI overlapping. Okay, but we're focused on the candles closures. Okay, and now even just, again, I don't want to put too much on my chart. But if we bleed lower and we get a close below, I'll switch that a little later. This BISI here, since it was used to send us higher, I want to see if we can dig down. Okay, so right now it's really just a waiting game. I want more information, a clearer idea, especially because we're within yesterday's candle. Asia low. And then we'll adjust for midnight opening price today. So we'll look back and forth at ES, but our focus is typically on NASDAQ. So recall this as well. Remember this falling just short of the new week opening gap. Okay, and as NASDAQ makes this here, this is your 930 fair value gap. About 5 minutes until that first macro window, 9:50 to 10 a.m. But the similar logic and framework in the way I read price and try to identify high probability liquidity pools, just like how NASDAQ fell just short of this new week opening gap here. Okay, so we have NASDAQ purging this. See how this sell side liquidity pool, which is currently the opening range low, I look at that as a high probability liquidity pool. Now, I suspect it'll get delivered to. It's just a matter of when, right? And that just comes with staying in tune with order flow. Okay, so right here, I'm looking at this as my 9:30 fair value gap on ES. Okay, note how there's a volume imbalance between the candles open. I include that in my fair value gap, anchoring my fair value gap formation. Right, so this is what we want to work with. We want to see how this is utilized, and more specifically during the macro window. Okay, right now we have this SMT with the high right here between NASDAQ and ES. Okay. So we'll still, and even between, it's not to completely negate the order flow and what occurs during those macro windows, right? You still want to see what order flow you're seeing. Are you seeing? So we'll still look at what occurs a couple minutes here before, obviously, and in between the macro windows, right? But our main focus is really to see, are we seeing clear setups, clear clues in price to show us what is likely to occur during those macro windows? Because anything that occurs during the macro windows, it's just higher significance to me. So this is your SMT here, right? If we're looking at price in this low that we deemed a potential high probability sell side liquidity pool, it's just the 9:30 fair value gap. So we'd want to see it close below and bleed through that, right? And really, if we're looking at the 9:30 fair value gap right here to this low, there's no inefficiencies in here. So if we are to get below here, we'd want to see it not spend a lot of time down here. We'd want to see some speed. Again, just to reiterate, my focus, it's in about 2 minutes, is on how we're delivering during the 9:50 macro. Okay, so here I'm curious to see if this order block can send us below the 9:30 fair value gap. We spoke about this a lot in yesterday's live stream during the afternoon. We're looking at what the next step is, right? We want to see if this makes sense to me, and that makes sense to a lot of people I talk about it, is if we're looking at like a retracement leg like this, we're essentially just trying to call its bluff, right? And how we do that is just look at candle closures from that leg, and if we have any significant inefficiencies that are standing in the way, again, from current market price to whatever sell side liquidity pool you're looking at, right? So in this case, it would be the 9:30 fair value gap we need to get below. Even now, right, 50 macro, but you're still trying to get in tune with order flow to see what's occurring as we head into that macro. Okay, so you'd want to see if this order block after the SMT to try to identify a turning point and to call this retracement leg from this bounce here, try to call that bluff. You want to see if that order block after the SMT is going to send us below here, standing in the way, and see how it's bleeding here. So let's go back to NASDAQ for a sec. We'll see what the 9:50 macro provides for us. How's everyone doing? Good? Audio keeps breaking up. Can you guys hear still? Cool, cool. I'll keep an eye on chat. Okay, so we have the 9:50 macro right now. So we want to focus on what price is doing. So this is your macro opening price. And it's just, again, the same logic refinement with other key opening prices. So right at the start of the 950 macro, we're going above macro opening price and referring to this 930 fair value gap. Okay, and when we have these significant inefficiencies in relation to where price is during these macro windows, it's very crucial to see how we deliver to them, right? If we're looking for a short and we have a significant inefficiency above, you want to see us go up there, S&P here. So see how this order block sent us down to close below this BISI here, this BISI, this 930 fair value gap. Okay, if we come back up into this 930 fair value gap, and let's get our 950 macro on here, our opening price. As we test this, curious to see how we act here. This SIBI's overlapping with the 930 fair value. 930 fair value gap significance. This should be a high probability SIBI because you have this 930 fair value gap here. And if we do close above and below, I'll start to mention the two chance model, the two chance logic that I've been mentioning within Discord as of recent, if it is applicable, but we want to see if we're going to reject off of this. And if we do go below this low, you want to see speed to the low to 588,650 sell side liquidity and see if we can get midnight open. And again, remember, we don't want to see us spend a ton of time down here. If we're going to go short now, same logic that I just mentioned with ES, you want to see if we go below this low, you want to see speed to that low. You don't want to see price just wick an internal low and then come back into the range, because then it's problematic for the short. It could be potential signs of seek and destroy, right? And you might want to wait, be a little more patient and wait for clear signatures. So just letting some price develop here. In relation, just adding to that previous note, if we were to come and sweep this low, I mentioned I would want to do it with speed, but if we were to, especially if this is a swing high, we'll see what happens. But just it's a good point on how I read price. If we were to get below this up close candle at 952 on a closing basis and we were traced into it, then I'd want to see that order block really deliver us with speed to the low. But right now, just waiting for a clearer picture of what price wants to do. We're just right at 930 open in the middle of the range. If we run our fib from the low to the high here, right, see how we're right at 50%. Remain patient. I say it to my group all the time. Or maybe you have an idea of what price could do, but you're not sure, so you don't execute. And just another reason, perspective to remain patient until it's very, very clear to you. I always say you never know what opportunity is going to be presented later in the day or with the next session, right? And you don't want to waste all your bullets utilizing them on low probability setups on every fluctuation in price, especially when we're on the 1 minute chart. On the 1 minute time frame, you can get a very, very good idea of what price is likely to do. You just need to know what you're looking for and when conditions are clear. Okay, so note how, yes, I see, this fair value gap here. I see this SIBI here on the 1 minute overlapping with this BISI and then this SIBI to the left of it, right? You can get clustered and confuse yourself with analysis paralysis looking at the 1 minute chart or just lower time frames in general. So you need to know what's in this 930 fair value gap. So if we get above it, right, what I mentioned in the beginning is the new week opening gap, how I utilize that. It's kind of a barometer, a measuring stick, a line in the sand. It's the same way I utilize the 930 fair value gap, right? So if we are to close above it, and we'll see if we get that, it'll be a good case study here for the two channels in a bit. So right now we're going to close above it. So in these cases, I'm just trying to remain in sync with order flow until I see something that's clear to me with just a draw on liquidity, right? If we're looking at this for a potential long, right, you can build a narrative and read price without having to push the button, right? Above the 930 fair value gap, yes, you want to favor longs, but I'm also understanding, and this just comes with experience in building your narrative. You're also understanding an SMT is up here. So could price get up here? Yes. But do I want to put risk behind it right now? No. Okay. Want to see speed. And I'll discuss that if that occurs. That's kind of the two chance logic that I give to most of the PD arrays that I look for in price. Okay. Let's check in on S&P, just delivering around 930 fair value gap. So intraday, S&P is the weaker of the two. And just while we wait for some more candles to print, just want to filter through my higher time frames. See if there's anything I'm forgetting. Look at any key levels we could be working. Session highs and lows. The only thing that I'm really waiting for now in terms of a scenario that I'd want to see is if we can get back below the 930 fair value gap on a close, then I'd want to see it push us below here, right, with speed. Of course, that hasn't occurred yet, so we have to just remain patient and wait for these candles to print. But, it's had buy side delivery, sell side delivery, back above it, and then if we reclaim it in terms of an inversion, because it was initially a bullish fair value gap, right? You don't want to see it spend a lot of time in here. So we're still in this macro window. ES is still continues to show that, and then NASDAQ also gets back below its 930 fair value gap, just adding to the previous note I made in terms of seeing speed below that 930 fair value gap. But in my opinion right now, it's just a waiting game. I want a clear idea. But we did have some good setups this week. I'll put together a review. Some setups I took. Delivery I liked. High probability setups, low probability setups, low probability conditions, and why. There's really no other scenario I'm waiting for here, right? And that's just trading sometimes, and it's very freeing of a feeling when you're looking at price this way, when you're not eager to get in. You're just waiting to see if your model's present, if there's a clear setup, and if it's not, you do nothing, and you protect your capital, you protect your account, and arguably more importantly, you protect your psyche and your confidence, right? You don't want to do dumb things that's going to affect your next trade and your state of mind going into your next trade, or just as you continue to read price, right? Especially on a Friday, you don't want to go crazy when it's not clear to you and then have to sit with that all weekend. Especially if you're having a great week, you're reinforcing a bad habit, or you're reinforcing a bad habit if you're having a tough week, a losing week, and then you just say, okay, I'm getting it back today, and you're impulsive, you're impatient, you're taking setups that have no real logic behind it, you're just trying to get in, hoping to get lucky for that quick push, over leveraging, you're just going to continue to build bad habits. Even if you get lucky and that trade's a winner, you want to build good habits, not bad habits. And your good habit building, your progression as a trader, going into next week, that momentum can start to be built with today's session and the decisions that you make today. Yes, still just hanging out here. Okay, so see how, this is just how I read price, right? We understand the importance of the macros, as I mentioned all the time, as I mentioned here. Okay, but if there's no clear setup to me, just because it's a macro, I don't just get trigger happy and go crazy and expect the market to give me something, right? The market doesn't owe me anything. I don't deserve anything from the market just because it's a time window. Yes, when you see time and price aligning, it's beautiful, right? And it's highly precise. But if it's objectively not showing me anything, I'm just going to wait. So again, if price is just going to expand higher right here, I'm not emotional about it. I'm just trying to get in sync with order flow until there's an opportunity, right? An opportunity could come with a 1050 macro, 1150 macro, 1:50 p.m. macro, or there could be nothing I like in the totality of today's session. And then with my patience today, I'll get rewarded for that on Monday or Tuesday, whenever the next opportunity comes, right? So we're demanding more from our setups, right? You don't want to be greedy when you get in a trade and if price hits your target, you're just only going for home runs. You want to be greedy in terms of the signatures and the entry criteria that you expect from the market, okay? So we've worked 930 fair value gap CE a couple times. So this is at the moment bullish signatures. Okay, so how can I utilize that on top of the scenario if we were to get back in its totality below the 930 fair value gap? That just adds to confluence that I don't want to say we're above macro open, we're above 930 open. If that doesn't occur, we just wait for a better opportunity, right? And I'm still, in terms of just identifying key liquidity pools that I expect price to draw to at some point, I'd still look at this low the same way. And what did I mention earlier? It's just a matter of when. Okay, when the setups and the signatures and price are showing you that it wants to go down there. And if we do bleed higher here before going below the 930 fair value gap, of course, you want to see this high. And then if we expand through that, your next target would be previous day lunch, trying to get above that 930 fair value gap. I'd still be curious to see if NASDAQ and just ES as well is going to push higher with this SMT in relation to the current high day holds, right? If we come back up for one purge, are we going to roll over after that? So it's important to see the reaction if or when that is to occur. Slow delivery here. So if we are to go higher, if that's going to be the first move, there's really no other reason for price to want to get down right now. We've already worked the 930 fair value gap so much. And again, just in case you guys joined, really just waiting for a clear picture, okay? Waiting to see if we're going to continue to see support from the 930 fair value gap. The 930 fair value gap, and when I say that, it's just the first fair value gap after 930 open. That's just how you'll see it marked in my charts. That's how you'll see me refer to it, how I classify it. It's the BISI that was formed after 941, right? 930, chop around, fair value gap. Okay, so right now we're seeing speed off the 930 fair value gap. ES following here. So see how there's really, at that point, we had already worked as we get to higher high. Let's see if we can get up to lunch high or not. Previous day lunch high, I should say. We'd already worked after we reclaimed it, CE, or 50% of that 930 fair value gap, right? We worked it a couple times. At that point, when price is up here, building your narrative, or if you're taking a stab at along here, that's when you want to see speed and explode, right? If you're on side and price has already spent a lot of time in this, it's worked 50%, right? Which is a key level, especially with the 930 fair value gap. And then it's working the high, and then it's trying to displace higher. That's when you want to see and should expect a pop, okay? Let's check it on. Going to remove this order block above the 930 fair value gap support to this high. But what I'm seeing, or I want to see occur now, is if ES gets this high, is it going to play catch up, or are we going to start to roll over? In other words, after a purge here, would we see discount inefficiencies fail to support price? So NASDAQ leading the way today. Just grinding up some stickier price action today, getting close to that previous day lunch high. S&P purges this. Okay, so now let's see this reaction. So we're just looking for clues of if price is going to continue or if we're going to see a reversal. So we're purging this high here. This was yes, previous day high. And again, if this thing just keeps grinding up, we would just be waiting for an opportunity to play a continuation that would make sense. And those typical scenarios are when, we would have a next leg up, right? Next leg up that would engineer some buy side liquidity, and then we just wait for a retracement and a macro power 3 setup. to the highs. Okay, so see how the S&T is still holding up top there? Now we're testing this BISI that delivered off of what? Off that 930 fair value gap on ES. So it's crucial to see if we're gonna find support here or we're gonna close below it, right? The significance is still, in my opinion, on the 930 fair value gap. If the S&T these. So NASDAQ, and this is a good note, if I'm looking at the 1 minute time frame like we have been today, and on this last or most previous leg up, see how there's no inefficiencies, it's just kind of immediate rebalancing and grinding its way up there. That's when I'll look at the 30-second time frame and look to see anything. So here, right, higher, and plain and simple, that's its state of delivery. This bullish inefficiency was utilized to send us higher to purge this high. Okay, the only thing, if we start to roll over, that would be, okay, so we're still seeing support from this. I guess we'll stay on the 30-second on NAS for now. And ES, not much to mention still. Right, so after there's a key, in this case, buy-side liquidity sweep, and we have an SMT that's potentially holding above, you're just looking for this to be a protected high. You're looking for confirmation of that. And what is confirmation? Closure below bullish inefficiencies that were made on the way up there, because you're looking at this as, a false fair value gap, right? This displacement was just for the purpose of trapping longs. Okay, and now we're testing the 930 fair value gap. If we displace through this, we favor the line in the sand on on ES, excuse me. NASDAQ, same thing, right? You need to see us slice through the 930 fair value gap. And then if and when that occurs, you want to see any retracement into it act as resistance to push us lower. Right, so I already mentioned, you can get a great idea of what you need to see overcome, where your focus should be on the 1 minute time frame. You just need to know what to look for, right? When you're building your narrative and trying to identify order flow. So good sign here, ES closed below this BISI. We'll see if it can get below the 930 fair value gap. And we've already spent a lot of time in here. We have this order block, the 951 down close candle. We don't want to see us bounce or spend a lot of time. If we're going to go lower now, there should be no reason for us to, chop around in here. Okay. So we did get that close below. We'll monitor that. And we'll watch this here, this 30-second time frame on NASDAQ. And again, yesterday's high. You'd still want to see this push us lower, but me being greedy in terms of signatures I want to see, I don't like when this occurs, right? Of course, it'll occur sometimes, and we're seeing so this 30-second BISI was utilized to send us higher initially. Now we're closing below it. Are we going to see us push us lower? And if we test this 930 fair value gap, what did we already discuss? We want to see if we're going to close below it. See, it still looks suspect up here. So we'll just take it step by step, candle by candle. Still, again, if you guys joined late, really I'm just looking to see on the 4-hour chart and zooming out a bit. if we can get it close below this BISI on ES. We have these equal lows at 58.50 even. That's also the daily BISI high. Okay, so that's a very, and liquidity, equal lows exactly. Okay. And even if we just, just a potential scenario, not getting ahead of ourselves, but if this high is going to remain protected and we're just to get below the entirety of this structure, right? You'd have this here, by extension, you'd have this one I just mentioned, and then you would have this order. There would be no reason for price to come back up to that high, and you'd really want to see the next leg down, right? But of course, that's just a potential scenario that we want to see if we get that candle close below here as step one on the 4-hour time frame. And same thing here with the hourly. We're looking to see if we can get an hourly close below this. Okay, and if we start to go back to ES actually, if we start to get wonky and close above and just chill around the 930 fair value, destroy. Right, and we would want to do what? Remain patient, right? Because if we were to go down now, do we want to see price close back above it? No, we don't. We want to see it displace lower out of it. We want to see efficient delivery in price, clean signatures in price, right? And we understand the significance of the 930 fair value gap. Okay, especially, we already went above macro open, purged this high, right? And if this is a protected high with the S&T above it, right here, there really should be nothing else for price to do. I don't want to see this get filled. I wouldn't even want to see this get filled completely. Right? We're demanding clean signatures in price. And again, if you're not seeing those, maybe it's a sign of what? To remain patient. Or if you're in a trade, reduce your risk a bit. Move stop to break even. Right? Take a partial, things like that. Use it to your benefit. So see how this 30-second, again, this BISI was utilized to send us higher. That was its initial state of delivery. We closed below, and it sent us lower to clean up some of these lows and refer back to the 930 fair value gap. Now, right now, this is not the type of reaction you want to see after testing that, right? We mentioned we want, okay? Let's go back up to the 1 minute. Just look at what I'm seeing. Still a lot of sticky price action, a lot of wiki action. Not a lot of displacement. And even going back to what I mentioned earlier with NAS, nothing's really changed in terms of the route to the lows. You want to see on the 1 minute time frame, can we get below that? And you don't want to see these reactions, especially after purging these lows. And of course, just continuing to build the narrative. And this is just my thought process, right? Especially highs above a lower time frame high, falling just short of a session high. We want to see a slice through this. We want to demand those clean signatures and price delivery. So see how ES is coming back above? That's problematic for the continuation now. Is what I'm referring to, right? Kind of mentioned it a bit earlier in RTO, guys, you know how I view the two chance logic. If we are to get below, back below right now, this 930 fair value gap on a close, then you want to see it with speed, right? No ifs, ands, or buts, because we spent a lot of time here. We're closing, right? This would, I'd just be looking at a quick retracement into a slightly deeper premium in this SIBI, right? And why does it do that to the gap? I'd want to see it deliver us lower. Okay. And again, if we're just to chop around here, that's signs of what? Do nothing, remain patient. $930 fair value gap. So don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this is just trading sometimes. Right? You guys see how patient I am, right? Again, if I was to miss some sort of move here, if it doesn't make sense to me, I could care less what it does, right? And you guys should have that same perspective, right? And then your reflection, your review, your journaling process, you'll go back and say, okay, objectively, I'm glad it didn't make sense to me and it's still not making sense to me now, right? I'm looking at the charts and I know I still wouldn't put risk on. Or you'll go back and say, okay, in the moment I missed this, right? Maybe I could have put a trade on here. Maybe this was an opportunity. And then as you go through that journaling process daily, okay, every day, it's just a matter of time till you're a better trader and your skill set is sharpened, which is just reading price. Okay, so just continue to remain patient. If it doesn't make sense to you, you just don't take the trade. It's as simple as that. And just having that perspective, it helps you conquer those emotions. Staying patient, staying disciplined. So we're back below this now. So now I'd want to see speed, right? I wouldn't want to see it come back up into this high. If we're going to go get the lows now, you don't want to see it get back above. And my interest is concluded in this session. And especially really until the 1050 macro. That's how I view it. So now that we got back below it, again, why did it come up to a slightly deeper premium here? I don't know, right? But now that we reclaim this, there should be no other reason for us to go higher. We should bleed now, right? And again, if we're to come back up and spend time in it or close back above, it's just conditions that I would not want to be a part of. Let's check in on NAS. It's just the same logic. So NAS is showing now an unwillingness to go down there, as it has been the stronger of the two so far. And again, guys, you know, I sound like a broken record, but when we're purging internal lows, in this case, or just internal range liquidity, especially intraday on the lower time frame, and you start to see it just come right back up into the range, and if we were to close right back above the 930 fair value gap, it's not conditions that I want to be a part of. And we need to see NASDAQ, and we should be here right now. Right? You don't want to see us just consolidate around this. And ask yourself, right? If I was in a long, would I feel comfortable? No. If I was in short, would I feel comfortable? No. Right? Because of the stickier delivery that we're seeing, right? You want to see signatures from both markets. That would. And still, guys, just because time is passing and more candles are printing doesn't mean I just have to change my perspective. The same thing is how I'm viewing NAS. So remember that 30. Just want to take it off the chart because it looks funky as I go to the 1 minute time frame. We're still putting our main focus on the 930 fair value gap. So even right now, there should be no other reason for ES to come back up here if we're going to bleed lower now. And if we close above this structure, I'm going to get off. Unfavorable morning session. And on days like today, when you're seeing these signatures, you want to wait for what? And really stress time. Those macro windows require more for entries. Okay, and going back to its core, is there a clear draw on liquidity? That's number one, yes. Number two, wait for time. Number three, see the signatures for high probability entry. And if those things don't occur, you do what? Do you randomly get in? No, you just remain patient. So again, there should be no other reason for us to go higher, right? And if we get below this low, you want to see us with speed go lower. See how the SIBI is the only SIBI from this high and it's in the from current market price and it's in the lower half of that 930 fair value gap, you want to see these SIBIs when they're overlapping push us lower when we're looking for a potential. Let's check in on our friend Naz. Just being a brat, it doesn't want to go below the 930 fair value gap yet. Okay, I prefer ES's structure here opposed to NASDAQ. Again, there should be no reason for ES to come back up here if we're going to go lower. And if we close above the 930 fair value gap, I'm going to get off. And then with my own trading as well, I would just be waiting for, at the moment, the 1050 macro, but just clear conditions. You don't want to be part of conditions when price is delivering as such. NAS just doesn't want to go below there. All right, ES testing this high. Right back to internal range liquidity. So I remember after we purge internal sell side, in this case, after slow sticky delivery, do you want to see us come right back up into the range and go for the internal buy side? No, you don't. So it's a signature of seek and destroy, and I want to remain patient. So again, wish we had cleaner delivery, okay, a little better price action that I would have preferred, but this is the reality of trading. And sometimes it's just not going to be clear to you. Sometimes you're going to have to remain patient, okay, and eventually you will be rewarded for your patience. You know, the old saying is patience pays, and it's so true, right? You want to wait for price to show you a willingness to move around. You want to wait for a clear draw on liquidity, and you want to wait for time and price to align. So still, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Hopefully in the future we'll get some better delivery, and I will talk with everybody soon.